Hello, and welcome back to the Vibrant Soulful Wellness Podcast. This is your podcast for ideas, practices, and strategies for living and working more vibrantly. And I'm your host, Annie Barrett. My job is working with individuals, groups, and workplaces and helping them move towards higher well being and greater fulfillment using tools like coaching, lifestyle medicine, habit change science, mindfulness, and yoga. And I'm really glad you're here. And in this episode, I am sharing with you a talk that I gave on gratitude. It is November. Many of us are thinking about gratitude because Thanksgiving is coming up, but really, cultivating an attitude of gratitude is something that we can do year round. And so I'll be sharing this talk with you today, and I'll let you take a listen to it now, and I'll hop on at the end as we wrap things up. Thanks for being here. I feel like we're living at a time when doing what I'm calling heart work is more important than ever, which is to say that we are leaning into care for ourselves and leaning into care for others around us, those that are within our in our communities, and finding the ways in which each of us can find the good and amplify the good. And so I hope that what I'll be sharing today will help you do that. Attitude of Gratitude is the name of our workshop. We're here today and we're going to spend this hour talking about how we can uncover a deeper appreciation for what we have in life and how a variety of different gratitude practices can help us foster resilience, enhance relationships, and bring more joy and fulfillment into our daily experiences. One of the things I've just been thinking about is that there's kind of three parts of gratitude. That one, yes, it's a feeling that can naturally well up in us, the feeling of gratitude, feeling grateful for an opportunity or even in a moment. But it's a practice. It may not be something that naturally wells up. It may be something that we practice at so that it does well up in us. And as we practice it more and more, it becomes a more durable trait that we can call on. And when it becomes a more durable trait, that's when it really brings these bigger benefits of enhancing our life, improving our physical and emotional well-being, and making us more resilient. And so we're going to talk about today what gratitude is, why it matters, how it develops in humans from young humans all the way up. And we will look at gratitude in other mammal species which exists. We're going to look at our body and brain on gratitude and how we grow it in ourselves, how we grow it in our core relationships, like in our families, in our homes, and also in our workplace, and how it can help us during hard times. So a variety of different opportunities here. I just want to acknowledge that a lot of the ideas and the strategies that we hear about today come from the field of positive psychology. And as a coach, that's one of the main fields that we really draw on because coaches have the job of helping people, as I'll say, thinking about how people flourish. And positive psychology is the study of how people flourish. It's a cool branch of psychology where for many, many years, psychology focused on what we might call psychopathology, how things go bad, how people languish. And that continues to be important. We need to understand what happens when people become anxious and depressed and other types of mental illnesses and psychopathologies. But on the other side of that is this whole other side of like, how do we help people flourish? And that's kind of the bent that I take in the work that I do. There are a lot of really wonderful resources on gratitude and research that's happening around gratitude. The Greater Good Science Center, which is a center of researchers and practitioners that comes out of Berkeley, is doing so much good work. One of their publications is this book called The Gratitude Project, which is edited by Jeremy Adams and a number of other individuals. I'll be drawing on this research in our talk today. As well, one of the foremost researchers on gratitude is Robert Emmons, and his books is Gratitude Works. He's done work in the field of gratitude for a number of. And then if you're looking for just a good read, The Gratitude Diaries by Janice Kaplan was written several years ago, and it continues to be a great work of one person's journey at working on gratitude for an entire year. The main idea of gratitude is that it is seeing the good and going a little further. If you've done work with me before, which some of you may have, I talk a lot about how we can orient our brains and incline our brains towards more the positive. And so it's appreciating life, acknowledging the goodness in life. No matter what's happening, there is something that's good. When days are dark, it's hard to see it, and it's more and more important that it becomes like a practice that we look for it. And then gratitude's going that next step further and recognizing that the good things in life are often due to forces outside ourselves, particularly the efforts of other people and other things like nature. And even so, we choose to think of it the cosmos. So we can think about like two components. The first one is acknowledging that there's good things in the world. It doesn't mean life has to be perfect. Obviously, it isn't. There's lots of things that are very challenging right now. But it means that when we look out in the world and we look at life, we can find goodness, and that there's a resilience there. And we'll talk more about how that helps our brain later on. But the second part of it is recognizing the second component of gratitude is recognizing where that goodness comes from. People and forces in our lives that have conspired to give it to us. And it engenders in us kind of a feeling of a humble dependency. Often we think this is a country where people hold themselves up by their bootstraps. And we do have rugged individualism, but we never are alone in that. As one teacher of mine used to say, we're all in the service industry. We all are humbly dependent on many other people and many other forces around us. And when we're grateful, we have this sense that someone is looking out for us, and that is a good thing. So, what gratitude isn't is it isn't about ignoring negativity, pain, difficulty, challenge, things that we might feel are very wrong in the world. It is recognizing that there's also good, but it isn't necessarily easy. Some people will find that it's hard to find the good when days are dark. And it may also be hard to recognize or accept that we have dependency on others. And some of us need to actually work at being able to say thanks and to feel thanks without feeling indebted. And again, we'll talk about why that might be true for more people, why that might be a tendency. So why does it even matter? Some people might think that, okay, when we're grateful, we kind of sit back and we're complacent, that it might get in the way of being ambitious, of what we might call healthy striving in life. But as it turns out, the science really doesn't back this up. The science really shows that people actually have more healthy striving, are more successful when they practice gratitude, and that gratitude drives pro-social behavior. It's interesting. Gratitude actually has roots in primates. So there's this word reciprocity. Reciprocity is exchanging goods and services between individuals. It's kind of like, hey, you scratched my back, so I'm going to scratch your back. And so researchers actually try to look for evidence of gratitude in other species. And in other mammals, as we're learning, we see that. It has evolutionary roots, we might say. So we see that reciprocity in chimpanzees and capuchin monkeys, especially in food sharing and reward sharing. We can just say, hey, it's not just in humans, it's in other mammals. And as we look at our young humans, if you're a parent, you may have noticed this, or if you work with kids or you have kids in your life, we recognize that gratitude is something that develops in humans over time. So if we look at our young children, like 3-year-olds, 3-year-olds can begin to identify feelings. They can begin to identify, I'm happy, I'm sad, that person over there is sad, or they're happy, or they're upset, they're angry. And over time, that turns into recognizing, oh, that person's grateful. Someone found their cat and they're happy they have their cat, and they're grateful that that person helped them find their cat or their shoes or their backpack. And in families and environments and cultures where gratitude is more modeled and more promoted, then there's that expression of gratitude early and more often. And we'll see that there are different ways that it gets expressed. So there's the verbal gratitude. And certainly if you're a parent early on, you taught your child to say, thank you, thank you, thank you, when they were given something. And then over time, maybe your child was also offering gratitude to you, reciprocating with something. Maybe they gave you something, even if it was like that piece of food that you didn't really want because it was all grubby or full of slobber, and they were offering it back to you, but it was that concrete thing. And then there's that connective gratitude piece where reciprocating with, oh, you helped me and I'm going to help you too, or I want to help you. So different ways. And we just see that happening over time, even all the way up into teenagers who don't always express a lot of gratitude, but if we keep modeling it, they will become grateful over time. Lots of different benefits of practicing gratitude, psychological benefits like our mood and satisfaction. We have physical benefits of our own body in a variety of ways. And we have social benefits of our stronger relationships. So we'll look at these. I call this our brain on gratitude, or our body on gratitude. So the people who study gratitude and actually look at the brains of people when they are experiencing gratitude have found that when you are experiencing gratitude, expressing gratitude in a place of feeling gratitude, there are brain areas of your body that are there are areas of your brain that are lighting up. And Those areas of your brain are those that are associated with other people's perspectives. So it's like, oh, wow, being able to put yourself in another person's shoes. Also, those of empathy, those of being able to tap into how another person is feeling. Social bonding, the part of your brain that is connected with bonding with others, the part of your brain that's connected to a feeling of relief. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that that's better for you or that's better for me. Emotional regulation, relief of stress, and reward centers, which is serotonin and dopamine. When we're feeling gratitude, all those good things are happening in our brain, which over time begins to rewire our brain in a better way. I talk a lot about negativity bias. As humans, we have a tendency to be scanning the environment for what went wrong yesterday? What is going wrong today? And what might go wrong tomorrow? And believe me, it doesn't take much of opening up our laptop or, turning on our social media feed or opening up the news to see that. The good part of it is it keeps us, right? It's an evolutionary strategy that's meant to keep us out of danger. So even like walking down like my forest path, I am watching out for the place where I might twist my ankle. Good, but that's not all of it. The other side of it, having a positive mindset, having a gratitude mindset is also an evolutionary strategy, because when our brains are lighting up in these better ways, not just in the centers that are related to pain and stress, then that means my prefrontal cortex, the part of my brain that is connected to good problem solving, creative thinking, that's open. So actually our brains on gratitude make us more able to figure out and imagine a better tomorrow, to problem solve in a better way. So we have both of those sides, negativity bias and an opportunity to lean into the positive. The research that they've done showing people that are doing gratitude practices, that are feeling grateful, found that when we're in that space, we actually have reduced levels of inflammation in the body. When we're in a place of gratitude, we actually have less headaches, less gastrointestinal problems, less respiratory infections. It can positively make us feel like we have less pain. It helps people better recover from heart attacks. People have higher motivation to exercise. They sleep better at night. So rather than counting sheep, you can count your blessings when you go to bed. And it helps us have healthier lifestyles in general. Our life on gratitude, here are some examples. Gratitude generally makes us more engaged in life, and it actually boosts academic achievement. When they've done studies on undergraduates, people in college who are feeling more grateful, their GPAs go up and they have less burnout. In the workplace, it fosters belonging and purpose and engagement. And we know that grateful people pay it forward and work to improve the lives of others. So interestingly, there are gender differences in gratitude, and they're not huge, but they are significant enough that they're worth talking about. Maybe somewhere in the range of 10 or 15% of women tend to feel and express more gratitude than men. We maybe don't know exactly why. Different people who are sociologists look at the traits of being more communal versus being more agentic. Communal traits are the traits of looking out for others, feeling that more connection with others, and agentic traits are having more like agency, more individual autonomy. And there's a range of this. It turns out that those who study the traits of people who identify as men and women, that there's a little bit more of those communal traits in women and more agentic traits in men. So research to date shows that there is a gender gap in gratitude. So it's just a thing to know and a thing to kind of keep our eye on. There's also cultural differences in gratitude. Gratitude is expressed differently in different cultures. And in some cultures, this feeling of, oh my gosh, I cannot possibly repay you. When someone gives us something happens and there's a feeling of, oh my gosh, I feel guilty, or I feel indebted, or a feeling of regret upon receiving something. Maybe you even know someone in your life that has a hard time just receiving. I have a dear friend who I've had for a very long time, and both she and her mother are in my life. If you give them anything, whether it's a ride or a jar of jam, there's that immediate feeling like, I got to give that back to you. And it's an interesting thing that feels it to them like there's an indebtedness rather than just like a taking it in. So we'll talk about that and talk about how we can be better givers and better receivers. Giving thanks and accepting thanks isn't necessarily easy. Sometimes it engenders in people a feeling of, I feel undeserving, or I feel indebted. It also might feel awkward, or we might feel vulnerable or pressured. And this can be either the giving or receiving. And interestingly enough, the research shows that men are more likely than women to feel indebted to someone if they receive something unexpectedly, like, oh my gosh, I got to like do something. So that's interesting. So let's look at some ways that we can be better at saying thanks and also receiving thanks. When you are saying thanks to someone, you can be specific. So the example is, imagine it's a workplace situation and say someone helped put on a conference or an event. So you could be specific, would be like, hey, thanks for making that conference room so inviting. The way you set up the tables, the chairs, the decorations really made the environment inviting and warm. And feel how that's a little bit more than just saying, hey, thanks for helping out. It's telling them thanks for exactly what they did. And then going further, you can acknowledge the effort. Wow, I realize it took a lot of time to set that room up and you worked some extra hours to get it right. And then you can tell them what it meant to you. I received a lot of positive comments about the event. I'm really grateful to have you on my team. And all of that just gives a little bit more and builds connectivity, which we need those connections with other humans at this time. On the same token, if someone says, hey, thanks so much for setting up that room and doing all this, the really simple thing would be just to say, hey, you're welcome. But then you could also go further and lean into it. If someone said thanks and told you all those nice things, you might just kind of want to be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to hide or let it slide by. But instead, what if you went a little bit more and you said, hey, you're welcome. I did put a lot of work into that. I'm glad you liked it. And what even more, you could say, hey, you're welcome. Hey, what parts of the event did you enjoy most? And that gives you some feedback. It allows you to take it in a little bit more. And an interesting thing that you might do when you receive thanks, especially if it comes through a letter or an email, is I have a file in my inbox that I just call love notes. And sometimes it's like in the moment of reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel kind of embarrassed that someone's thanking me for that. But then I just allow myself to sit with it and be like, wow, this person really appreciated that. And I can feel really good that they did. And then I have a file that I put it in, love notes. So I don't just delete it right away, but I keep it. And periodically I'll look at it. And the same thing if it's a physical place, we just can keep some of those thank you notes and just be able to receive that. That's important to be able to receive that thanks. So as we've been talking about, gratitude wells up in us, maybe unexpectedly as a feeling, but over time, we act on it. It becomes an action. And if we do that frequently, it's a character trait. And so that gets into talking about gratitude practice. The first one, can I just see the good and take in the good and feel the good wherever and whenever it comes up, taking in the good? It's basically this idea that we take a positive fact and turn it into a positive experience. Could be I am walking or I'm driving or walking, and there are so many beautiful trees with fall leaves. A good fact is the color of that tree is beautiful. The good experience is taking it in through my senses and savoring it. And whatever it is, whether it's a meal, whether it's something we see, whether it's something we hear, is pausing and taking a moment to leave an imprint in us. And when we do that, inviting our senses to make it a rich experience, it then also becomes a richer positive memory so that the things that we're grateful for, yes, they're in the here and now, but we're also here and now, but they're also things in the past that we can reflect on and remember. So taking in the good with your senses, savoring the good wherever and whenever you find it. Just pausing and taking it in. Over time, this leads to positive neuroplasticity. We turn a positive moment into a positive memory, and that then gives us something that bolsters us during times that may be tough. It builds our resilience. So if we were to go further, a practice might be 3 good things. I've been doing this with my family, but you could certainly also do this at the dinner table. And for the past week, I've been doing this at the dinner table with my family, with whoever happens to be around, even in meetings, 1 or 3 good things. Hey, let's each go around and name 3 good things. 3 good things. So with those good things, you can take them in through your senses. You can take a moment and acknowledge how they showed up in your life, the candy, the pizza, the eggnog, your humble dependency on the people that brought those to you. Okay, so good, 3 good things. We'll build on that. So then the next thing would be gratitude journal. A lot of the research that they've done on people and these benefits of gratitude have been with people who have committed to doing gratitude journal work, which might be, hey, okay, I'll spend 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week, or even 1 day a week. They're finding that it doesn't even have to be every day. Even if it's once a week, it actually has a sticking effect on us. And you might write or you might dictate, you might even sort of like use a voice memo into your phone, up to 5 things from which you feel grateful. And it tends to be a little bit stronger than just thinking it. So just like we talked about with the thanks, we can be a little bit more specific. Not just say, hey, grateful for my family. Yeah, I am too, but like exactly Why? Let's get specific. Why am I grateful for my spouse today or my kid today or my mother today? And we can go over depth over the breath. I don't need to name 10 things. What if I name just 3 things and really actually let myself expand on those? I can get personal, like how I'm grateful to my husband, but why? Why am I grateful to him today? Taking out the trash, or this morning he had made still cut oats in the instant. Thanks for making the still cut oats. Also, there's subtraction, not just addition. Recently, I was talking about this with someone, and a tree had fallen in their driveway. Neighbors had come together to chainsaw the tree limbs so they could get out. The subtraction would be like, wow, so grateful the tree didn't land on my car, on a human, on my house. So we can be grateful the things that didn't happen, the bullets that were dodged. When good things just pop into our life and they're gifts, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that. And it just happened. Some are small gifts like, hey, I thought I was going to had to unload the dish drain today. It was my turn, but you did it. Thanks. Surprises, variety. But the idea is that we're doing this regularly. And as we do it regularly, we start to build something. Gratitude for when someone sees us, feels us, validates us, acknowledges. Like, now here's one that I'm working on right now. It's a gratitude letter and a visit. Taking the time to write a letter to someone who did something for which you're grateful, but to whom you have not really fully expressed your deep gratitude, whether it's last week or whether it's somebody, a decade or two ago. I can think of a mentor in my life who helped me in the career that I'm currently in, and taught me a lot about the work that I do. And I know I thanked her at the time, but she lives in another state, and I still think about her often. And I think about what she offered me in terms of both the skills I know, but like the heartfelt part of why the work that I do feels meaningful. And so it's writing a letter to that person, describing how this person affected your life, and even sharing what you're doing now and how you remember their efforts. And if you have a chance, you could visit them and read the letter to them. So you might think about that. I invite you even to think of one person that comes up for you for whom you'd like to write a gratitude letter, which is a little bit going further than just, hey, thank you. There's a thank you note. Thank you notes are great. A gratitude letter is a little longer. And so think about who that person might be. Okay. And in the realm of taking in the good, we can take a savoring walk. And this is something that I love to do daily, and it reminds me to stay in that positive space. It's just taking a walk by ourselves. I know it's great to listen to podcast music, all that, but it's sometimes just taking a walk quietly and noticing the positive things around us, whether we're in an urban environment, whether we're in a nature environment, using our senses, appreciating the sights and sounds, and just acknowledging in our mind, pausing and noticing what makes it feel pleasurable. And you can do a well-wishing walk. And a well-wishing walk is going on a walk and just silently wishing the people that you happen to see, wishing them well. If you want to say it out loud, you can say, have a good day. I'm wishing you a good day. And if that doesn't feel appropriate, you can just kind of look at them, smile, and just wish them well, just that kind of energy of well wishing. So, savoring walks, well wishing walks, these are good things to do that can build gratitude. We can also recognize positive events that what if they never happened? I mean, I don't know about you, but my spouse I met in college. What if I'd gone to a different college? What if the place where we met, which was a student run organization that we both got work at, what if I hadn't gone to work there? What if my child hadn't been born? What if that trip that I went on that was really meaningful to me and actually ended up taking me into my career, what if I'd never gone on that trip? And we can just kind of go walk down memory lane and look at the chain of events that happened out of one positive event, like how that choice I made to go to that school, take that trip, take that job, then allowed me to meet these people that gave me these opportunities that enriched my life in this way. And all of a sudden we have this really big recognition of this one positive event amplifying positivity in our life. And we can take a moment to just feel positive for that. And it can be a useful thing to just write that down, or even in the company of family, sit down and be sharing that. As it turns out, there are enemies of gratitude too. And it's recognizing those enemies and seeing where they stand in the way. And I don't mean by enemies people, I mean enemies in your head. I'm going to start with habituation, that we are used to things, so used to things that we don't actually see that they're good. How many of us are used to telework, like Zoom, for example? Like, wow, I'm so habituated to it that it is like so annoying when I have to update my settings. Oh my gosh, I had to update my Zoom before I got on today. That was so annoying. Rather than like, hey, that's amazing we even have Zoom. Or that's amazing that, my partner unloaded the dishwasher. And wow, maybe that person does that every morning and I'm habituated to it and I don't recognize it, or takes out the trash or cleans the leaves from the gutter. We get habituated and we forget to recognize that, hey, that's amazing and that's good and I'm grateful, and to express it. Also, our good fortune. So many good things that we can take for granted because there are other people in other parts of the world that have things much tougher than us. And there's a hedonic treadmill where we think that, okay, I'll just be happy once I drink that latte, once I buy another shirt, another pair of shoes, get another car, get another job, get another partner. And it doesn't work like that. Gratitude is actually taking in the good and recognizing the grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side, but the grass is greener when we actually lean into it and see the greenness, see the good. It's gratitude in hard times. When we're going through a time that's really bleak, we may have a really hard time seeing anything good. And that's valid because hard stuff really happens and we're not going to be quote unquote Pollyannish about it. When life's going well, it's easier to express gratitude. When things are hard, it's harder. It's not going to come easily during a crisis. And that's where, if we've been practicing it for a while, we may be able to call on gratitude to get us through and recognize that it is a choice, or that after the really awful day happens, that we can see it and reframe it. And so let's talk a little bit about that, what that reframe is. Reframing a negative experience, whether it's a day later, a week later, a decade later, we can say, okay, what lessons did I gain from this experience? And sometimes it requires having somebody help us out a little bit with this. Sometimes doing it on our own, and especially if it was a traumatic experience, we might need a lot of support for this. There is on the other end of trauma, post traumatic growth, and it's a process. It takes work to get there. We can acknowledge if there was someone or something that helped us get through it. And we can acknowledge if we feel grateful now, even if we couldn't feel grateful then. We can acknowledge how it helped us grow. And again, we may need helpers to do this for us. It might not be something we can do on our own, but that reframe can really help us move forward. And gratitude is part of that reframe. Also, I've been thinking a lot about both and thinking. It's called dialectical thinking. Dialectical behavioral therapy is something that therapists can do, but all of us can practice what I call both and thinking, which is recognizing that at any given time, it does not be one thing or the other. There can be both. Someone told me recently they saw a beautiful rainbow. There was both sun and rain at the same time. And in life, we can say, hey, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel so upset that this happened or this is happening. And I'm grateful you're here with me. I'm grateful we have other people on our team. I'm grateful there's other people in the world that feel like I do. I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to work at this. That was tremendously challenging. And I learned a lot from it. I'm grateful for the learning experience. Being in both and is a super power move that can help us during challenging times. So let's talk about our core relationships. What about growing gratitude on the home front? If you have a partner, if you're in a couple situation, this is a cycle that can really be beneficial. When you feel more grateful to your partner, you are going to hold on and work for that relationship, not just take it for granted and let it slide by. And when one person feels appreciated, they feel more grateful, and then they're going to appreciate you. And it goes like that. It takes some effort. The effort that it takes is recognizing that the enemies of gratitude are the places that we get stuck. We get stuck in language like, why doesn't he ever? Why doesn't she ever? Why don't they ever? Why aren't they grateful? Why do they always? Why do they never? Etc. Why don't they see this? You get this. Maybe you've heard before, but when you're talking to your partner, if you use always or never, especially in the negative, you want to say, you always show up for me. Sure, say that. If you say you never show up for me, that's going to be a tough one. It may be true that that person doesn't always show up for you, but those words always and never tend to get us in a lot of trouble. And so we can start by looking at what is going well in the relationship, and whether or not we're upset with our partner or in a good space with them, thanking our partner for that 1, 2, 3, 10 good things. That's going to be really good. And if we can see where we have been habituated to recognize, oh, wow, I have a partner. I'll just say myself, I have a partner who cleans the leaves out of the gutter. It's not me usually it's my partner. Am I taking it for granted year after year, or am I thanking that person? And so it's recognizing those things, big and small, the heavy lifting and the really small things are important. And oftentimes focusing on that helps us see the big picture, because we all have dirty socks, dirty laundry. I can't believe you forgot this. I can't believe you didn't pick up that. That kind of negativity bias will take a relationship in a downward spiral. Gratitude will take a relationship in an upward spiral, and it just takes one person to start it for it to continue. Which isn't to say you should stay in a relationship if it's not working for you, but it's just to say that you can make your relationships that you do have better with gratitude. So one of the things that I recommend, and that I do myself, and I've talked to people about, other people do this, is having a regular meeting. It can be a couple meeting, can be a household meeting, can be a family meeting, can be a meeting with your kids. But we all have to do things like meal plan, figure out who's doing this chore, who's taking the car in for maintenance. And when you have meetings on a regular basis where you both get to do those menial things that we have to do to keep a household running, but we start with the gratitude and the appreciations and do this on a regular basis, it really helps the household function well and smoothly. So it's having that monthly check-in where you start with gratitude and appreciations, and then you might move to the calendar and chores. Then, okay, let's plan for the good times. Okay, now let's discuss the challenges. Okay, we'll plan the next meeting and end on a positive note. Doing this on a regular basis and bringing the gratitude into it is really going to help you. Okay, growing it in families. I'm imagining that I'm not the only one here who has kids. My kids are now adult kids, but they're still living with me. And we want to raise grateful kids, right? We might think, gosh, why don't my kids say thank you more often? Why don't they recognize everything that's being provided in them? Really, it actually starts with us. It starts with us modeling gratitude. And it starts for us also being grateful for our kids and looking for what we can be, what we can see in them that is good. And recognizing that young kids, it starts with helping them develop their feelings over time. Oh, wow, I can see that you're sad about that, or I can see that made you so happy, or oh, isn't that so nice? I bet you feel grateful that your friend did that for you, and helping them identifying those emotions. And as they get to be older kids, recognizing older kids, teenagers are not effusively expressing their gratitude. Some of this is developmental. I have college kids living at home. I think that they should be so grateful for their living situation, the food that they're being provided, et cetera, while they're living at home. It's also true that they're working to be more independent, and they probably wish they had enough money that they could have an apartment with their friends right now. So it's a both and they are grateful, and they might not always be expressing it. So it's actually on me to model it and to be grateful for them, and to see that every time I do that, it actually does remind them of what they're grateful for, and they do express it back. So it's something that we can start with, and recognize that it's going to be expressed differently at different ages. Okay, so as I look towards this last bit, we are in a workplace situation. It turns out that there was a 213 survey of Americans by the John Templeman Foundation, and they found that actually people were least likely to express or feel that gratitude in the workplace. This is an area where we can change. This is a growth opportunity here. People are not necessarily naming their jobs as the thing in a long list of what they're most grateful for, and it's okay if you put your partner and your kids at the top, but this is a growth area. How can we make job be a thing that rises up higher on the list? And so that's something that we can think about here. I would say that gratitude can start anywhere, but if you happen to be at the top, when employees hear that thank you from their bosses first, and when managers, bosses, supervisors are willing to lean in and ask how people would like to be thanked, because maybe not everybody wants to hear it over the loudspeaker, or see chocolate in their mailbox. Maybe they just want to be brought into office and just thanked nicely. There's different ways, but we can lean in. If you are a leader, lean in to how you can show more gratitude and be the person that grows gratitude at work. And then also, let's look at the people who we're not acknowledging. So in every organization, there's people who are getting all the glory. They're in the spotlight. People know what they're doing. They're being thanked. They're super visible. And then there's many people who aren't as visible, and it's figuring out, okay, all the people in our organization, all the work that's getting done, whether it's being seen by everyone or it's happening in the backdrop, but but we all have a humble dependency on that work. Can we find a way to thank those people and acknowledge their work? I think we started to do a better job with that during the pandemic with the frontliners, but there's also the people that are in the back. And so let's figure out that. Remember, it's quality, not quantity. It doesn't mean 100 thank yous every week. It's really expressing that gratitude with authenticity. It's not pat and thank you. It's, hey, pausing and really being intentional about it, being specific, being detailed, knowing how that person wants to be thanked, or even asking them, like, hey, I want to thank you at this event, and I want it to be meaningful for you, and give them a little heads up. And think about the different ways we do that, especially in this hybrid work environment. We need to get creative about how we can show gratitude. So inviting curiosity around that, inviting creativity around that, whether it's gift giving, doing someone's job for them, sharing it on Slack, and then recognizing when we do get broadsided by a crisis in the workplace, just like we might in a crisis another time that we experience in life. This is another opportunity to reframe and look at for how we can be thankful. We're going through a hard time right now. Who's showing up? Who's showing up to help? What lessons are we learning? How are we collectively coming in and holding each other through this time? How can we feel thanks for it even after the fact? What ability is it drawing out of us? How is it possibly making us a stronger, and recognizing that gratitude has a place in that? All right. So you just listened to this talk that I did on attitude of gratitude. And we talked about what gratitude is, why it matters, how gratitude develops in humans, our body and brains on gratitude, how we grow gratitude in ourselves, in our core relationships, and even at work. And I invite you just to think about any one takeaway from this podcast is for you today, and how you might start cultivating more gratitude in your own life. And I would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to the Vibrant Soulful Wellness Podcast. And if you like this podcast and you want to hear more, please subscribe to this podcast on Spotify. You can also head over to my website, www.vibrantsoulful.com, where you can hear more episodes, join my weekly newsletter, and I get a lot of other wellness resources. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you'll be back. Live vibrantly, live soulfully. Be well.